Well, I'm going to show you how we can make some sort of a creature, whether the creature is more like a cute creature, something that's really sweet, something that's really terrifying, grotesque. And so if I'm dealing with creatures, we can also go along the lines of human or human-like creatures as well. So if you'd rather have yours be more of a human, then definitely go ahead and do that. Now, you're going to want to hit the sketchbook and start playing around with some different ideas. And then you want to go hop on the internet and start looking at some of those ideas. And maybe from that, you'll have somewhere to go. And now it's time to shape it. And so it depends on the creature, animal, whatever it is you're making, what the shape is going to be. Because it might not be a circle, or it might be a circle. So what I have here is something that needs to be fired. It's got this crazy little hippo with some personality. And it's made by having two pinch pots here and here, so back, top of the head and bottom of the head in this case. And what I've done is I've kind of, after I had it open up, I ended up pushing it in the middle, so it becomes more like a peanut shape. So instead of being a ball, it's going to have more of a longer and then peanut shape. And so it really depends on what you're shooting for form. And so if I wanted something that was more a longer kind of thing, I can do some shaping here. Now it's going to act a little bit like a ball that has air in it, you know, basketball, soccer ball, that has air inside of it. So because of that, it's not caving in, like it's not smushing in, as long as I'm not like attacking it. Like I can change the circle or the sphere into an oval or an egg shape, and I could keep doing that if I wanted to. Now, you can go too far with that and like do too aggressive where like all of a sudden you do cave it in and then you do have some problems. This is my odd person. Creepy, right? Super creepy. And it lays down like this. Turn this egg shape into a little bit more pointy on the end, which then allowed me to get in and turn into a beak. Funky dragon here. Again, started out really round, almost egg shape, eventually changed a little bit. And then I ended up flattening the bottom here and making a way it could hang, so it could hang on the wall like that, or it could sit flat on the table. With this one, I ended up building some coils around the neck to be able to have it stand up, that it wasn't just the head. And so it might involve a little bit of neck / shoulders. Speaking of head and shoulders, here's this little boogeyman that Mrs. Fowler likes to leave in the ceramics room to terrify me. So I'm going to do a baby cow. So after looking at some reference images, I got it figured out of what I want. So I'm going to stick with a very simplified, almost cartoony look, very ball-oriented head, the ears and little tiny horns. And then I'm going to use a small pinch pot stuck on that would become the snout area. All right, so I'm ready to take the ball and put a small pinch pot on for the snout. And so just a small piece of clay here, go through. And so now I'm going to test it out and see how it looks. I'm not going to stick it on just yet. I just want to put it on here and see if I'm on the right track. So it looks like this right now. I'm going to compare that with what I was thinking. The clay is really soft at this point. I haven't let it dry out. And I'm just going to see if I can cut it out. If you've carved a pumpkin before, it's a very similar idea. Cutting out a piece of it. And now we're going to see what it's like inside. So one thing that I really believe in when it comes to being an artist is we prepare ideas, and we a lot of times have ideas in our head of like, here's what I want to do. And I think that's really positive because you need to have a goal you're shooting for. And sketching is a great way to try out ideas so you can visualize them, also to capture ideas before you lose them out of your mind. But along the way, you might work on something and it was going to be a cow. somewhere along the way you notice something, like you're like, oh, actually I like this new opportunity, and it becomes something different just because the way you're doing it, you just see, oh, actually I changed my mind, and that's great. If it means you can just do it, great. If you say, nah, I need to probably pause and go look up some pictures so I can see what that thing looks like, okay, so be it. But be flexible to make changes along the way, to a different creature. But notice I start with the plan and go after that plan, but then somewhere along the way, I just change the plan. So now, as I go through and do the other things, I want to do anything that's not an appendage. I don't want anything that comes off of it yet, because they're just easy to break off, whether I'm moving it around a lot or I'm putting it into a bag. So I want to work on everything else. So now is a good time to work out like the basic form. If I say it's good, I need to work out all the little cracks. I need to fix that now. The longer you wait on those, the harder it's going to be to get rid of. So I'll smooth out the little cracks. If you want anything in the mouth, then you need to do that now while the mouth is wide open. So when I put teeth on this dude here, I had to open his mouth way up, put teeth inside, like inside where the lips are, and then I had to close the mouth back up again so the teeth look like they're actually in there, not just attached to the lips. Same thing with this creature. I had to put them inside. They're kind of really gross. They're like grayish, bluish teeth. And I had to put the teeth in there, score and slip them, and then I had to close the mouth back up again. Now, one more thing that's a game changer when it comes down to workability. So as I'm working with this, there's going to be times that I find it very hard to deal with because I can't get inside the clay. Like I can get in there, but it's kind of difficult. Depends on what you're shooting for. So if I'm okay having an opening on the bottom like that and sits like that, well, then I can get into it from all angles. I'm able to get inside of it. Now it's a sweet little hand puppet. Don't start, Mr. Keel, I know. So that allows me to get inside of it. This did the same thing. It was open on the bottom, so I was able to get in. So if you open the bottom, it certainly gives you more capability of getting in there. So if you're really having a hard time working with it, like if the mouth isn't very big, you can certainly do some things about getting inside. Okay, I'm ready to put my eyes in, so I'm going to take one away, and right after I take it away, I'm going to go ahead and put some little lines, put the scoring in there, and I want the other one next to it, score that as well, put a few lines in there. There we go, and then I'm going to take those two pieces that I just took off there, score those as well. I can draw a few lines in there, and a few lines in here. All right, scoring and scoring. Take your slip. Get some on both pieces. Don't just do it on one piece. Put it on the part that's going on and the part that it's going on to. And so one of them is already ready to go. And then the other one will be ready here. I'll add my slip on here. And there it is. Okay. So it now has these little eyes. All right, so I gave my clay some time to dry out a little bit. It's getting to that leather hard stage. It's very cold. It's not squishy anymore. It's still dark because it's not dry. It's getting drier. And so I'm at the stage where if I try to change the form much, it's going to crack a lot. So if I said, oh no, that mouth is wrong, and try to really move around, it's going to crack a lot and be very difficult. It can be done, but it just is a lot of work. But it's now a great stage to get all of your surfaces looking how you want them to look. And so if I want them really smooth, now is the time to do it. So it's kind of counterintuitive. You'd say you'd want the clay to be softer when you want to smooth it out, but the problem is it's too soft at the early stage, and so when you do it, it tends to smush it too much, and you want it to hold its own. So I'm just going along, and I'm rubbing out every little spot where I see I don't love it. Now, sometimes, like when you get into edges, sometimes a little bit of water, I'm just going to take this a touch of water, just on my finger, I'm going to rub in just a little bit. Now, I will caution you against overdoing that. People that keep adding water, think about what's happening. You're saturating the clay with water, and when our clay has a lot of water, it's really squishy, and when our clay has a ton of water, it turns into slip. And I don't really want this turning into slip or even smushy wet clay anymore. So I will use it sparingly. But sometimes I just need to add a little bit, because if I keep rubbing along and it keeps kind of pulling off more clay and leaving it rough, that might be the way to go. I was also using my sponge, which I added some water to, and I squeezed it out. So I'm squeezing out, there's no water coming out, meaning it's damp, but it is not really wet. And that's a great thing when you think of it like erasing, to really smooth out a lot of the areas. So when I had large areas I wanted to smooth out, it works pretty good. So I used it in a lot of areas, especially these curved areas. I wanted to be smooth. And then I would draw in some places where I felt like, no, I wanted to have a distinct area that's separate. I could draw that in with any number of tools. I could draw it in with a pencil. But as I talk about a lot, just because you draw it doesn't mean you're done. You're probably going to need to go over it again. Probably need to try rubbing it out a little bit. I'm going to try the sponge here because I want to get into that line. And I rubbed it out and it left a little bit of extra stuff there, which I don't love. So now I'll do it again. I'm not going to dig too hard into it though. Just kind of go lightly. And now that area is clean. The line's good. I could try it again like this. So each time I do that and I take off more, it's cleaner and cleaner. So doing things on the first shot and calling it done just doesn't happen that often. It's more like do it once, clean it up, do it again, clean it up, do it again. And you keep going through that process. And so I would love to see all of you guys get in the habit of really working your clay once you think you're done. Like in your head, you're like, okay, I think I'm good. To go back and look at it all and just see all those little things where like, well, that's good, but if I took a minute, I could make that even better, sort of thing. And just keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay, so one thing I haven't talked about yet is that I'm making a ball-shaped cow head here. And in the end, this ends up somewhere. So if it's sitting on a counter, on a table, how's it going to sit? Do you want it to sit round and kind of roll around a little bit if it gets bumped? Do you want to have it so that it's a little flat on the bottom so it stays put? Do you want to have it tipped up a little bit more? So you want to think through these things and how you want to handle that. I want to think through how do I want it. So if I have my tabletop here, I'm like, you know what? I do want it to tip up because I think it's going to be a lot more interesting to look at if it's like that. So I might try just some kind of so you do have to pay attention to what's happening to your clay. If you're tapping it down and you're changing the form, remember, my clay is very dry compared to how it was before. I need to wash it, see that it's not cracking a whole bunch. So it's very important that if you make something with 2 pinch pots and you're closing it up, think of it like a balloon where the air is inside and the air can't get out, that you do need to do something before it can be finished, and that's have a way that air can get out. So for all of these, they all have an open mouth, so there's really no concern about that everyone has open mouth or nose. This has to have some little opening. But perhaps the face you make, you didn't want to have an open mouth for whatever reason. So then you need to have a little hole somewhere so that when we heat this up, we fire it to extremely hot temperature, the air is expanding and it needs to have a way to get out. Otherwise, pressure builds up and then it's going to either just find a little way out and it's going to crack it, or it's going to find a big way out and it's going to be in several pieces. So I'm ready to put on my last thing, is my ears. Now, I purposefully made the ears ahead of time. I already did the smoothing out of them and got them how I want them to look before I put it on the clay, for the same reason I didn't want to put them on earlier. They're easy to knock off, and so I'm going to get it looking as good as I possibly can first, then it's time to attach. Okay, so I will test fit these. Just take a look without scoring and slipping to see that I like it. Squeeze some of that in there, so now I just have that area that was pretty weak. I can now press a piece of soft clay in there, and it's going to fit right into that angle where they meet each other, and it's hopefully that new piece I added is going to stick to both the ear and to the head, and then therefore have a better grab, a better bond. And I'm just going to try to work that out and smooth it in so it looks decent. But I know that it definitely changed the look of it a little bit, and that's why I decided not to do the front, because I liked how the front was looking on mine. I don't really want that to change. So there, that is much stronger. I can see it already. It's not flopping off like it was before. This one definitely needs it as well. So my cow is looking good. I feel good about it, you know. It's fun. It's fun to create something out of a lump of clay. This piece of earth becomes this cool little thing. So it's fun to be a creator. All right, so I'm ready to roll. I'm going to go set this aside somewhere so it can start to dry out. I am going to check on it later just to give it a final buff off, but I'm done working on it for the most part, and time to clean up. Okay, one more thing I want to show you is a little detail thing you might want to add in there. When I look at this creepy guy, um, it definitely seems like he has eyelids over where his eye is, and then other places like where I had the eyebrows sticking out. There's going to be places where you might want that kind of effect, and you can do it with thin little layers of clay. Well, I could take a piece of clay and I smushed it down flat, so it's like a little leaf right now. So on one edge, it's very thin. The whole thing is very thin. And if I want to do an eyelid over this eye, what I would do, I think I would just have the edge kind of sit over it like this, and then have it go down and just see if I like the look of it. If I do, then great. I'm going to come back and I'm going to put some scoring slip on that, and then what I'll do is I'll put this on, and then what I can do is I can blend it in on the back side so that it just becomes part of the head, and then it never shows up, and the only place you see it is that edge right there above the eye. And so I could do that on the top, and I could do that on the bottom if I wanted to have more like an eyelid kind of thing. So it's going to greatly change the look of it if I do that.